In May 2016, I finally gathered the courage to ask out Kate, the girl I'd had a crush on for 3 years. She said yes, and 3 dates later, we were official. Over the next 7 months, our relationship felt perfect, too perfect even. We had so much in common, and we rarely fought. It was like we couldn't do anything wrong. We were open with each other, and that connection extended into a great sex life. Both of us had stable jobs, which allowed us to spoil each other, and our families supported us, which made everything even better. In January 2017, I got accepted into my country's Armed Forces Reserve program as a combat engineer. From February to April, I went through basic training, the hardest challenge I had ever faced. There were times I thought I wouldn't make it, but Kate was there for me, sending me messages of support. When I graduated, she made sure I knew how proud she was. But things started to change when I had to leave again for more training in the summer. For 3 months, I was away for advanced military training, 400 kilometers from home. The experience was brutal. I struggled to fit in and became the target of many jokes. My self-esteem took a huge hit, but Kate's belief in me kept me going. I pushed through and managed to graduate in 5th place. Still, I was different when I returned home, and that's when things between us started to fall apart. When I got back home after my summer training, things between Kate and me weren't the same. She said I had changed. I wasn't as spontaneous, as outgoing, and I became easily annoyed by the smallest things. I preferred staying in, watching movies, and having sex rather than going out. What I didn't realize was that I had developed severe social anxiety during my time away. I couldn't shake the feelings of being an outsider, and it started to seep into my relationship. It was a problem I didn't know how to handle. As we neared our 2-year anniversary in 2018, we had a huge argument over a small misunderstanding. The tension had been building, and that fight was the breaking point. We broke up, and I was devastated. But 3 days later, Kate texted me, saying she wanted to fix things. I was hesitant, but we started talking again. We didn't meet in person for 3 weeks, but we kept in touch daily, slowly trying to repair what had broken between us. However, when we finally got back together, something felt off. Every conversation with Kate felt like I was walking on eggshells. I could feel my anxiety creeping up, and the pressure was making things worse. Our relationship, which had once been so easy, had turned into something fragile. Despite our efforts, I could sense the distance growing, and I wasn't sure how to fix it. Then, at the end of July, things took a turn for the worse. Kate had met a guy named John while I was away. She had started talking to him a lot during our breakup, and they had become very close. John was the kind of person Kate seemed to see in me before. I didn't think anything of it at first, but I began to feel uneasy. One evening, I arrived at Kate's place after work, expecting to spend the night. When I walked in, John was sitting on the couch with her. Kate said he had just dropped by for a quick visit and was about to leave. But after John left, Kate's behavior changed. She became distant, cold even. I started to realize that something was wrong. I asked her how things were between us, and she confirmed my worst fear. Our relationship was over. We agreed to break up the next day, but Kate said I could stay the night since it was late. As the night went on, Kate became oddly protective of her phone. She kept it hidden from me, something she had never done before. When I asked about it, she brushed it off, saying it was just private stuff, but my curiosity got the better of me. I knew her passcode, so I unlocked her phone. What I found made my heart sink. There were hundreds of messages between her and John. They talked about how she was now single, how excited she was that they could finally be a couple in public, and they laughed at me over everything I did wrong. I sat there, quietly crying as I read each hurtful message. I never thought she would do this to me. My crying wasn't as quiet as I thought, though. Kate woke up and saw what I was doing. She went into a complete rage, accusing me of invading her privacy. I had no words left to defend myself, so I just grabbed my stuff and left. She yelled at me as I walked out. By the time I got home, it was early in the morning, and I just broke down. I spent the whole night crying, feeling completely betrayed. The next day, I called in sick to work and stayed in bed, completely numb. But that wasn't the end of it. Kate had already started spreading lies. She told everyone that I had forced myself on her that night, claiming I did it one last time before leaving. She told everyone I had taken advantage of her in a desperate attempt to keep her around. It wasn't true, but she didn't press charges, claiming she didn't want to make a spectacle of her life in court. I was terrified that her false accusation would ruin my military career and reputation, but nothing came of it in the end. However, I couldn't shake the fear for months. The months after the breakup were a blur. I tried to focus on work and keep my mind occupied, but everywhere I went, Kate's betrayal haunted me. The worst part was knowing she had been so cold and calculated with John, someone I had never even considered a threat. I spent nights questioning everything I thought I knew about our relationship. Had I been blind to her feelings all along? Or had she really been using me from the start? The worst of it was when Kate started dating John. I found out from mutual friends that they were official within weeks of our breakup. They seemed happy, posting pictures together, making out at parties, acting like they'd been together forever. Meanwhile, I couldn't even look at another woman without feeling like I was betraying myself. The worst part of all this? John had known her better than I ever had. He got the version of her I had never seen, and it stung deeply. I couldn't bring myself to contact Kate. The thought of hearing her voice, even in anger, was too much. But her presence lingered like a shadow, always there in the back of my mind, always threatening to pull me back into the emotional mess I had barely started to untangle. I wanted to scream, to confront her about everything, the lies, the way she had treated me, the way she used me for her own satisfaction. But I didn't. I kept it inside, quietly simmering. At work, I struggled too. I found myself snapping at people for the smallest things. My mood swings were wild, and it didn't take long before my boss called me into his office. I couldn't focus on anything, not even my training. It felt like I was walking through life with a hole in my chest, trying to patch it up with work, booze, and distractions. I knew I had to face it, but I didn't know how. One evening, about a month after the breakup, I ran into Kate while I was grabbing dinner at a local restaurant. She was with John, laughing and looking completely at ease. The sight of them together hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood there frozen for a second, my heart racing, before I turned around and walked out. I drove home in a daze, not sure how I was still standing. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that she had moved on so easily while I was stuck. I had thought I was stronger than this, that I could handle it, but seeing her with him shattered everything. I spent the next few hours pacing in my apartment, unsure what to do with the anger and sadness swirling inside me. Then came the night that changed everything. I had been out drinking with some friends, trying to numb the pain, when I got a message from Kate. It was a simple text saying she missed me. It felt like the universe had just kicked me in the chest. I stared at my phone for what felt like an eternity, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to reach out, to call her and beg for answers. The other part of me wanted to tell her to go to hell. I made the mistake of replying. We started talking, and somehow, we ended up meeting later that night. We sat in her car, talking in circles. Kate seemed so different, so detached from the girl I once knew. It felt like I was talking to a stranger. The tension was palpable, and every word we exchanged felt rehearsed. But what hit me hardest was when she said, "I'm sorry, but we're never going to get back together. I just don't feel the same way anymore." Those words tore through me. In that moment, everything I had been holding on to for the last few months, the hope that we could somehow make it work, shattered. She didn't love me anymore, and worse, she didn't even seem to care that she had broken me. I walked away from that conversation feeling like a ghost. It wasn't the rejection that hurt so much as the finality of it. I couldn't deny it anymore. Kate was gone, and everything I had done to try to fix things had been for nothing. She had moved on, and I was still stuck in the wreckage. For days, I couldn't shake the feeling of being lost. I started to question everything. My worth, my choices, my ability to trust again. The guilt, the anger, and the confusion were eating me alive. And as I lay there on the couch, staring at the ceiling, I realized the most painful thing of all. I had been too blind to see that I was the one who had been breaking myself all along. That night marked a turning point for me. I wasn't sure what was next, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the past. I had to let go, not for Kate, but for myself. The hardest part, though, was understanding that letting go wasn't just about her. It was about forgiving myself for everything I allowed to happen. The weeks that followed were brutal. I had to face the reality that Kate and I were never going to be the same again. I spent a lot of time alone, trying to sort through the mess in my head. I was angry, confused, and heartbroken, but I had to make sense of it somehow. It wasn't easy, but slowly, I started to realize that I didn't want to be stuck in this anger forever. I knew I had to forgive her, not for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. I took a step back from everything. Social media, hanging out with friends, even work. I just needed space to breathe. And it helped. It gave me clarity. I started focusing on my health again, going for runs, eating better, trying to sleep at night instead of staring at the ceiling. It wasn't a quick fix, but I began to feel like myself again, piece by piece. Slowly, the sting of the breakup faded, replaced by a quiet strength. I started thinking less about Kate and more about my future. I learned a lot in those months. About love, about pain, about growth. And most importantly, I learned that I had to trust myself again. I couldn't let her betrayal define me. It hurt, yes, but it was just a chapter, not the whole story. One day, a few months after everything fell apart, I ran into John. It was awkward, of course. But after everything, seeing him wasn't as painful as I thought it would be. We talked for a minute, and I realized I didn't have any anger left. I had moved on. In that moment, I knew I was finally free from the past. There will always be part of me that wonders what could have been. But the truth is, I'm better off now. I've learned to prioritize myself, to let go of things that hurt me, and to understand that sometimes people change. Relationships end, and life moves on. As for Kate, I don't know what she's doing now, and I don't care. I wish her well, but I'm not looking back. I've accepted that some things just weren't meant to be. And as much as it sucked, I wouldn't be who I am now without the lessons I learned through the pain. To anyone who's been through something like this, take your time. You'll heal. You'll grow. It may not seem like it now, but you'll come out stronger. You'll get to a place where you can let go of the anger, the sadness, and the confusion. It takes time, but it's worth it. If you're still stuck, still hurting, remember that it's okay to not have it all figured out. You're going to be okay. Take the time you need to heal, and when you're ready, let go. The future is waiting for you, and it won't be defined by the past. If you want more stories like this, or advice on navigating the tough stuff, check out my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more updates. You're not alone in this. Keep going.